Ron James of Mufon Television, welcome to Nature of Reality Radio. I decided to get you on after I got this email from either you or someone who was publicizing your work and somehow knew my email. I'm sure a lot of people at Mufon know my email from the conferences that I've been to and whatnot, and I might as well say I'm friends with John Venture for all intents and purposes on Facebook. We communicate a lot recently. Even sent him a message asking me if he was aware that Ancient Aliens isn't even on TV anymore, apparently. The new episodes didn't come, and we'll talk about that and other things later on this interview. Before I give you the chance to tell your life story, just usual disclaimer for all my listeners, folks. Just when summer begins in June, I may have to make the show 50% pay-per-view and only 50% of the interview. The last 50% anyway will only be available for people that subscribe and pay me on Patreon. It's about time a lot of people start stop doing things for free and feel that it's okay to monetize your work. Anybody who says you're doing it for the money doesn't understand that that's the only, that you definitely have other reasons to do besides for the money, and they're too close-minded to think of any other reason why you do it. And well, I've decided to finally try to do that. It's not working though with the 2 to 3 weeks that I keep my interviews non-public because nobody's interested in subscribing to Patreon. So but by summertime, that may change, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because I didn't want to come to that. But also, and then also up until then, all my interviews get uploaded to YouTube on Cos.tv, and the link to the Cos.tv video is in the YouTube video description. Folks, please only listen to my YouTube videos for 15 seconds just for the sake of giving me a view credit, and then click to the link to get to Cos.tv and watch it there. I can make money the more people that watch it on Cos.tv. So by all means, please do that. And without further ado, Ron James, please tell us who you are and tell us your life story from a primary source perspective that explains why you do the stuff that you do, why you have the occupation with Mufon Television that you have now. You've got the floor. I don't have Alex Jones-itis. I do not interrupt my guests, so I will put myself on mute and let you talk for as long as you need. But again, we've only got an hour, so keep it brief, but keep it informative and also educational. That's why I say primary source a lot when I give people the chance to do this, so you got the floor.
Well, thanks a lot, Andrew. So we can circle back on some of the stuff that you were just talking about as far as monetization, how difficult it is nowadays for filmmakers and content creators to even make a living, and how it's almost demonized the fact that you have to get paid for what you do. That could be a very interesting topic, and I have a very interesting perspective on all of that. I got into video production kind of late in life. I was in the advertising industry, and it wasn't long before I was making TV commercials, and I was living in Florida at the time. I was working a lot of times. The big TV channels would come into town and let us carry their gear for them, and it just wasn't really super appealing. It wasn't going anywhere. And one weekend I was doing a big shoot for MTV Spring Break, and I just didn't really want to do that kind of stuff with my video production career. So I was looking through a magazine, and I found out about the International Conference on Science and Consciousness. And so I packed up my cameras, bought a ticket, and went there. And this was way back before everybody else was doing it, but I just tacked a green screen up in a conference room and just started roping these guys in. And in one weekend, I interviewed Bill Tiller, Amit Goswami, Dean Radin, just a bunch of people that later on became famous in like in The Secret and some of the other films. So I laid the groundwork for that. That became my initial Bigger Questions series, and then I came to Sedona for a while and created a whole metaphysical series of stuff to exploring contemporary spirituality. And that's where I met Steve Bassett from Paradigm Research. And he hired me to come and do his X conference. When I say do them, I meant, go out and provide all the video production and do the live streaming and all that kind of thing. And I was already pretty into the UFO topic, but not professionally. But that kind of got me hooked. And since then, I've done just a ton of UFO stuff. I've probably created more hours of finished content in the ET field than anybody else that's out there, when you count all the conference videos that I've shot, all the films that I've made, all the shows that I've done. And so it continues to fascinate me. And then I had the chance to start Mufon Television as a joint venture with Mufon. And for all the ups and downs they've been through over the years, they're still the world's largest organization dedicated to the scientific understanding of the topic, and they've survived the test of time. And when I thought about all the different places that I could align myself, it seemed like a good place to be. And so I started Mufon TV. It's an actual online subscription-based TV channel. You got to pay to access the content. And we produce original shows. We have the world's largest archive of commercial-free UFO-related material. And it's just been growing from there. So that's it in a nutshell, Andrew.
Thank you. And well, when it comes to UFO research, I've kind of exhausted myself to the point where I really, in my subscription channels, whenever I hear about, see a presentation video or a video talking about UFOs, I kind of gloss it over and decide it's not really in my best interest to listen to this anymore, because at this point it's preaching to the choir. Back in the day, I went through the trouble of listening to every single video and watching every video on the UFO TV Studios, the Disclosure Network YouTube channel. And that was a great time to spend my free time, I'm sure. And but it taught me a lot of things. And that channel doesn't actually do documentaries anymore, but when they did, a lot of them were very informative. And it was also a good test to try to pick out any disinformation that may be in there, a good discernment test as well. And there's a lot of.
Are you talking about UFO TV?
UFO TV. It was called UFO TV Studios. Now I think it's called UFO TV, the Disclosure Network, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Yes, great channel. And but when it comes to UFOs in the sky now, is it basically really? I mean, filming a UFO and talking about them, do you think that maybe the popularity of UFOs has kind of waned recently, because everybody's like, this is just a preaching to the choir to me? I really don't need to hear about it. Only when the government acknowledges that it's true for real and the ETs land on the White House lawn and say, yeah, we're here, the UFO nuts and HNS theorists were right all along. Now you have no choice because we're acknowledging it. Then and only then will people become interested in it again. Has the popularity waned recently because this is all preaching to the choir and people have other things to research and look at?
Now, you know what I've found is that it hasn't waned. In fact, among the newer, younger kids, it's more integrated. In other words, the millennials and their sons and daughters are no longer asking if there's aliens in contact with the human race. They take it as a given. They're no longer asking if the government knows more than they're telling. They know they do. So it's a whole different paradigm. It's not anymore this quest, this desperate quest for the truth. It's more of an understanding that the truth exists and that the details will follow. And so it's a really interesting thing. It's still the hottest topic in pop culture. And throughout the last few months, with all of the different types of government-related information that's rolled out, starting with Lou Elizondo and being firmed up all the way to this recent footage that Jeremy Corbell got a hold of showing some kind of something swarming a Navy ship, it's unfolding. And so for people that aren't paying attention to what's going on right now, they're missing a lot of the nuances that are going to lead to that ultimate disclosure that you talked about. Of course, that information is all being managed in a way that is meant to spoon feed the truth to 7 billion people in a way that they might be able to get it without going nuts. So it's actually the most exciting time in modern history to be a part of the subject, because the groundwork for the next generation of understanding is being laid right now by the media, by the government, and by the researchers that are still in it.
Yes, and I do recall Chief Golden Light Eagle at a conference that I went to in Sedona several years ago. He did say that when kids were taking a poll of what they would rather learn about in school, if schools were not brainwashing institutions and actually took education seriously, UFOs was one of the top 5 things that they'd like to learn about. Go figure.
Well, our kids are going to grow up in a post-disclosure world. We're going to get the announcement about life on another planet probably pretty soon. They should have announced it a long time ago. They started in 1976, and then they backtracked with Viking and Mars. And it's going to be some silly thing like, ooh, we found bacteria. We found remains of bacteria. We found something in a rock. But at the end of the day, of course, they know a lot more than they're saying. But once that is acknowledged, it's going to open the floodgates, and they're never going to be able to say, hey, yeah, we've got a shadow organization that's been managing ET contact for 50 years and we've been lying to all of you. They're never going to be able to say that. And so they have to figure out how to gracefully get us from point A to point B. And we're right in the throes of that right now.
Yes, and you mentioned Luis Elizondo. I kind of have a love him, hate him feeling about the guy. I actually confronted him at one of the MUFON symposiums when it was in New Jersey a few years ago, and I flat out told him about a couple of black letter laws that make it very clear that you, as a member of the government, have the right to disclose and reveal classified information if the government is using illegal means to conceal it and whatnot. And then all he did was cry home to mama and cite some other government documents and statutes and whatnot saying that he can't do that. And there's a lot of people recently that say his agenda does involve a little bit of a cover up of sorts, not revealing the whole truth and all. Although I'm not really inclined to think that he's an agent of the government. It may just be a part of his, well, maybe he's a little bit brainwashed, and also he's got maybe that opinion that revealing too much information is going to cause people to have heart attacks and strokes and ulcers because they can't handle the truth. So, what's your take on the guy?
Well, let me slim that down for you, because I know Lou. That same conference that you're talking about, I spent an hour and a half with him in a room and a green screen, interviewing getting some of the most explosive stuff that he's ever said, that I still haven't put out, and there's a reason for that. When people say that, like I asked him, I said, Lou, there's people that say, if you have information that's vital to human understanding, if you know it, you owe it. And his response is, look, I'm a soldier, I'm a patriot. As a soldier, I follow orders and I do what I'm told. And that is my code. If I have sworn to secrecy, I will uphold that code. That being said, do I want to see information get out? Yes, but I'm guided by my principles. And that's a really bitter pill to swallow, but it's also a very admirable position, because Lou is the kind of guy we want in our government doing the work that he's done. And so he has walked an absolute tightrope between the stuff he knows, the stuff he can reveal, and his obligation. And then people ask, well, is he still working? And quite possibly he is. Quite possibly he, through the unidentified show on history, through the work that he's done with TTSA, and through the work that he's doing now with the Pentagon 180-day thing, maybe he's still managing the disbursement of this information. He will not confirm or deny that to me. But at the end of the day, even though I wish he could tell us more, and I wish he would, I understand why he won't. And I do not disrespect him, and I don't dislike him. I think he's an amazing guy, and with a very, very difficult line to toe, honestly. So I have a really hard time disparaging Lou in any way, and I'm just thankful that he's there doing what he's doing, because even though we haven't gotten this big disclosure that we want, especially the UFO guys, they're all like, well, we want more information. We know you're not telling us everything. The rest of the world doesn't. And this information is going to be put out and managed by the same people that have been covering it up this whole time. And whether we like it or not, it's just the way it is. There's really nothing we can do about it, as much as we want to try, and as much as it ticks off the traditional UFO community. It is what it is. And so we're getting something. We're getting closer to acknowledgement. Lou's been a big part of it, and he's doing his work, and he's not going to endanger his life or his family or anything to go beyond his orders. And that's a damn good soldier, if you ask me.
Yes, and that's the part about him that I said I love him, hate him. Well, I would lean more towards love him for that. And well, his show, the show that he did, unidentified, you said it was called, or something to that effect. Well, I mentioned in the pre-show conversation with you that there were supposed to be some new episodes of the show Ancient Aliens coming out. A couple weeks ago, there was supposed to be one on Mount Shasta on a Friday night, but that never aired. And the next two new ones, that it's on Wikipedia. They were on Wikipedia. Wikipedia actually showed the dates of the new episodes and the titles of the episodes and when they were supposed to air. But when they didn't air, they just canceled out the dates and just wrote the date, the year 2021. there, I can't help but wonder if Ancient Aliens has suffered the same fate as UFO Hunters and Hangar One, which, for all intents and purposes, those shows got the boot because they were exposing a little too much information that the powers that be did not want people to know about. And I fear the same thing may have come true with Ancient Aliens. There's only so much that you can say that sounds crazy before people realize that truth is stranger than fiction, and maybe Ancient Aliens has perhaps crossed that line. Do you have anything to say about the possibility that they've gotten the boot as well?
Well, Ancient Aliens is Prometheus Productions. They're down in Orange County. They do the Curse of Oak Island and other shows. I think the thing that Ancient Aliens has run into, because let's face it, they've pushed the envelope big time over time, and nothing gets on television, especially through A&E, and I'm not disparaging them in any way because I work with them, but nothing gets on that hasn't been approved at some level by people that have access to the command and control of all this. So Ancient Aliens did a lot of groundbreaking stuff, and they continue to. And I think that any issues they're having with the show right now really have a lot more to do with the guy that created it passed away not long ago, and he was the show. And so they, I haven't talked to anybody at Prometheus, but my guess would be more that they're just, they're finding their way without him, and it's a tragic loss. This, Kevin Burns did more for the ET disclosure movement and for public awareness on the topic than anybody ever. But you never saw him hardly at conferences. You never even knew who he was. He's not a household name. But at the end of the day, that guy was it. He is the guy that put this stuff out there and really moved the bar. And now he's gone. And so yeah, they might be stumbling around trying to find their way without him. But I don't think there's anything nefarious about delays in new episodes.
Thank you. And speaking of possibly nefarious stuff, it's been a while since this has been brought up. I'm going to bring it up now, and if you want to change the subject, just let me know and I'll change the subject. But there was a report of a prominent member in MUFON getting arrested and charged with child pornography or something to that effect. Is that for real, or is this just a case of someone getting framed on bogus charges and they did nothing wrong, and the only reason they're getting these bogus charges against them is because there are people that don't want the truth revealed trying to silence them?
Well, there's people who believe that. Obviously there's a court case that's going to unfold. As far as everybody in MUFON, and really everybody in the community, it was a tragic thing, whether it's true or not, and we moved past it. It didn't directly affect MUFON. I certainly don't speak for MUFON, but at the end of the day, what I've seen evolve since that happened for MUFON itself is that they are really starting to hit their stride. So there's a lot of improvements that have been made since that time. And luckily, MUFON didn't really get hurt by that because it wasn't them. There's thousands of people in MUFON that are really dedicated to what they do. And at the end of the day, a bad apple happens, whether it's true or not. A bad circumstance comes about. You can't blame everybody. You can't blame an organization. So MUFON handled it well. They've moved past it. Whatever happens with the resolution of that is not anything that we have anything to do with. And so, life goes on.
Right, and life will continue to go on no matter what roadblocks you come into. And another roadblock that I've heard about, the idea that MUFON has been infiltrated by forces within the CIA and the NSA for whatever the reason, to, I don't know, compromise in some way, shape, or form. The idea of MUFON infiltration, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I think it's only logical that if you are involved from a government standpoint, or from a shadow government standpoint, or from a deep state standpoint, or from a Majestic 12 standpoint, whoever is really organizing and managing the truth of this information, it would only make sense that you've at least got your fingers on the pulse of the UFO organization. You're going to find out where the sightings are. You're going to find out what the buzz is. I can tell you that when I started MUFON Television, I pretty much, it's a joint venture between myself and MUFON. I do everything and I make the decisions. I have never, ever been told what topic I can touch, what topic I can't, what I can say, what I can't, where I can look, what I can put out. I've never been hampered in any way. So the idea that MUFON's been infiltrated, I don't think it's been infiltrated to the point where it's controlled, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if it was monitored. I mean, that's only common sense. Of course, you're going to monitor the UFO groups because you want to know what's going on. You want to know what's going on in the community. Maybe you're a crash retrieval team, and so you're paying attention to the MUFON reports. Maybe it's the first way you're going to find out about a crash. So is MUFON monitored by government agencies as far as what they do? Just like they monitor any kind of group? Possibly. But is MUFON been infiltrated? Is it being controlled? I don't believe that for a minute, and I've seen it up close.
Are you also aware of any of the idea that MUFON has developed a rivalry with Swiss Pleiadian contactee Billy Meyer? I had Michael Horn, who's the de facto primary spokesperson for Billy Meyer, on my show, but that interview was kind of turned out to be a little bit of a disaster, even though we did get some key info out. He spent a lot of the interview bashing people who claim to be ET contactees, and I don't know what his problem is, but there were, kind of some ET contactees like Gosha of Cosmic Agency comment on that, saying, Michael Horn, stop criticizing us, we know what we're doing, and whatnot. But this rivalry that may have generated between MUFON and Billy Meyer, do you know anything about that? If you don't, we'll just change the subject.
There's no official element of MUFON that has a rivalry with anybody. At the end of the day, one of the biggest problems with what we call the UFO field and all the people that are in it is that they're often acting like children on playgrounds. And at the end of the day, it's not very productive. It doesn't make the field look good to other people. And if you want to argue about, well, I think cattle mutilations are this. No, I think cattle mutilations are that. So let's go to the mat in the middle of a conference. It's bad behavior on the part of a lot of people. And me personally, with MUFON television and the stuff I do, I'm not interested in having it out in that arena. I'm more interested in conveying information to the other 7 billion people on the planet that are going to take the information and not fight about it and not act like children. So, MUFON has no beef or challenge with anybody. People inside MUFON might mouth off. That's their prerogative. But MUFON as an organization is not about pushing beliefs. It's about sharing information. It's not about establishing themselves in some kind of authority. They're just doing what they do. And the playground will be what the playground is.
Yes, and on a related note, John Ventry, he in his presentations seemed to show that he has a bit of a beef with the folks at Ancient Aliens. In a couple of his presentations, I saw he showed that picture, a cartoon image picture that shows Giorgio Tsoukalos tied to a chair with a couple of gray aliens. One of the gray aliens is holding a club, about to slug the shit out of him or something, and the gray alien holding the club is pointing at Giorgio's face and telling him, "Hey buddy, stop making stuff up." Ridiculous cartoon, I think. I don't think that Ancient Aliens is trying to make stuff up, but I think what John Ventry's problem here is that he can't help but hold a slight grudge over the fact that his show Hangar One, which he was greatly popularized in and made a lot of appearances in, got the boot off the History Channel, and Ancient Aliens didn't. So he can't help but have a bad taste in his mouth because of that. I did have the chance to meet Giorgio Tsoukalos in person at the Contact in the Desert conference a couple of years ago, and I told him about this. Giorgio, I admire his attitude towards this. He said, "I don't give a shit what John Ventry thinks about me. It doesn't concern me. I got more important things to worry about." And I told him, well, great, but my concern about this is that as long as people within different factions of the ET and UFO truth movements and ancient astronaut theory truth movements can't get along with each other, that is a hindrance to the awakening of humanity to these subjects. So,
Well, I mean, look, it's a hindrance to them. It's a hindrance to the people that choose to go out into this field and make a lot of noise, but it's not a hindrance to the people who understand that there's a much broader mission here. I am so turned off by people that spend any time whatsoever denigrating other people in the field, because you know what? Nobody's paying attention. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what this person says about that person, and this person's theory sucks, and that and there's just this big battle because it's a little tiny microcosm of people that for whatever reason are going at each other more than they're going at the problem in some cases. And I would much prefer to not even play in that arena, and I'm having a great time educating the world about this situation, and I'm not finding any of this kind of stuff. And so, you know, you got to take the high road, and you got to be in a different place. If people in the field want to continue to nitpick at each other and create controversy, it's a very, very small audience, and it's a terrible waste of energy, and it makes the field look terrible. And so I don't do that. I don't have anything bad to say about anybody. And I just make my stuff and I put it out there and I do the best I can.
Right, and when it comes to the idea of credentials and whatnot, there are some people that are going to demonize others, but also try to exaggerate their own credentials. One case in point of that is the whole Stanton Friedman versus Bob Lazar thing. Bob Stanton claims that the late Stanton Friedman, may his soul rest in peace, I miss him very much. Although Ancient Aliens, when they referenced him, they referred to him as Dr. Friedman. He was not a doctor. He never had a PhD. That's another case of them giving him a lot of credit. But then again, Stan Friedman, he seems to exaggerate his own credentials. When I had John Lear on my show, John Lear was like, okay, first of all, Stanton's got no business accusing other people of not being what they claim they are. Stanton's always saying he's a nuclear physicist. He's never had a job in nuclear physics. He's got a master's degree, but he's never had a job in it. And you got no business saying that you're a nuclear physicist if you haven't had a job in nuclear physics. It's always attack the messenger. And, well, do you think maybe attack the messenger needs to stop? You've kind of already answered the question.
Attack the messenger absolutely needs to stop. The fact of the matter is that if there's anybody who's trying to control the field, what better way than divide and conquer? You know, if you can get all these so-called experts and researchers and investigators all bickering with each other like little kids instead of unifying and putting a better face forward, then you have pretty much destroyed the field and its credibility to the general public. And you know, in fact, people, you can see it for free on YouTube. Just Google Ron James Stanton Friedman. I did what many people call the definitive interview of Stanton Friedman. Him and I were very close, and we talked about Lazar, and I heard what he had to say about him, and you know, who knows what the answer is. But at the end of the day, it's not about arguing about whether or not Stanton's right about Lazar. Listen to Stanton, listen to Lazar, take in the facts, make up your own mind. And you know, reality is very subjective. So that's just another example of, you know, why is there so much interest in denigrating others when really we should all be on the same team? And we should all agree on a basic set of facts. And then if people want to go off on tangents, let them. But don't attack them for it. It's pointless.
Well, funny you mentioned that. I want to ask you about a common theory that seems to be gaining a lot of traction within the not just the UFO and ET communities, but also the astronomy community. The idea that Stanton has been pushing. Stanton Friedman, he said, "I'm a sucker for nuclear fusion," and well, apparently he was, because he was pushing the bogus idea that stars are powered by nuclear fusion. A lot of people are coming out with the idea now that in reality stars are not powered by nuclear fusion. They're actually electric and electromagnetic in nature, and possibly even scalar energy as well, and planets and asteroids can be thought of as cool spots on a universal web of electromagnetic consciousness energy, and the stars don't radiate heat. The stars are hot spots on this universal web, and the planets, they get the energy from this web that is transfers from the stars to the planets, and the planets have their own filtering system of sorts that, being conscious entities just like us, they can convert it into a form that can allow for life to exist. So the idea that a planet has to be in the Goldilocks zone in order to have life on it is bullcrap. That's it doesn't matter where the planet is. And I did address this with Stanton, and when I had him on my show way back in the day, and he I told him, if I may say so, there's no reason for you to acknowledge that you were wrong about the nuclear fusion theory, because if this stars are electric and scalar energy theory is true, then it only increases the likelihood of their life being in the universe, because it means the idea that stars have to be in the Goldilocks zone is wrong. Life can exist on planets no matter how close or far from a star they are. So, do you have any comments on this?
We're constantly finding out things that we didn't know, and we don't know what we don't know. So, I'm one of those people who truthfully thinks that the whole nature of reality, we're living in a simulation. So the fact of the matter is, the things that make things work within this simulation are subjective. And when we start drilling into physics and what makes a star work or what makes it not work, and maybe it's fusion, maybe it's electricity, maybe it's a plasma reaction, A, we don't completely know, and B, you can't fault somebody for basically taking in what information was available to them in the past and making assumptions based on it. So knowledge will evolve. And just because somebody was, even Hawking admitted that some of his most prized theories were incorrect. And so, Stanton wasn't around to see some of these new evolutions in science. He's gone now. And at the end of the day, he was doing the best he could with the information he had on hand. And so, again, it's not really a matter of right or wrong, because it's very subjective and it changes over time.
Yes, and Stephen Hawking, very interesting character. Mark Passio, former Church of Satan member turned whistleblower, said Hawking, he's got a lot of intellect, but he doesn't have a shred of intelligence. Intelligence, according to Mark Passio, is intellect plus creativity. And Hawking lacked the creativity. I mean, he never even entertained the idea of the multiverse. And, to be honest with you, I can't help but wonder if what Kerry Cassie at Project Camelot said is true, that the Stephen Hawking that we knew was not the original Stephen Hawking, but was actually a clone. Considering that nobody with Lou Gehrig's disease lives to be a senior citizen, I think that kind of seems perfectly plausible, and maybe there was people trying to use Hawking as a gatekeeper to try to keep our consciousness low from learning the far-flung new things like the idea of a multiverse and time travel and things that Hawking always tried to downplay, until right before he died he was willing to acknowledge that these things may be real. So do you have anything to say about what I just pointed out?
Well, I think if you're going to clone a scientist, you might try to filter out some of the things that are debilitating.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's talk
I mean,
about.
really, Andrew, it's like, hey, let's clone Stephen Hawking and let's leave him as messed up and wheelchair bound as he was before we cloned him. And then because he shouldn't live through his disease now, but the clone can. I mean, none of that makes any sense. I love Kerry Cassidy, but I have a hard time believing that Stephen Hawking is a clone or was a clone.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the future of Mufon. As I mentioned, a lot of people in Mufon, they are of the down-to-earth, nuts and bolts variety. Of course, when it comes to traveling the stars, you got the speed of light factor, and you realize that, okay, you need to find a way to exploit that. You can't go faster than light if you have mass, so what are you going to do to travel from point A to point B? Well, you got the Bob Lazar method of what he's saying is true about the 115 allowing you to spend space and time to bend towards you and bend it around you. There's also the wormhole theory, and then there's also the idea that, well, this is also how spooky action at a distance, quantum entanglement, works. The theory, the quantum physicists say we don't know how spooky action at a distance works, but even though you may not know how it works, we can explain why it's possible. And some are saying the way it's possible is because space and time are illusions. Everything is one consciousness. The fact that they are separated by X amount of miles or light years does not prevent them from being able to vibrate in sync with each other. So when some ETs that are of a high level of consciousness can exploit the fact that space and time are illusions, and that enables them to get from point A to point B in an instant. But that does, of course, raise the question, okay, but wouldn't you think that the more complex the organism is, the harder it would be to do something like that? You're talking one atom vibrating in sync with another atom. What about a human body or an alien body is a whole slew of atoms or whatever material. So how do you, when you talk about circumventing the speed of light, what are some of the common things that you talk about and look into?
Well, okay, there's a macro and there's a micro to the things that you just said. And I'm not a scientist. I can't, speak intelligently on theories of quantum physics. But what I can say is that in the micro, all of those things apply. In other words, you're like, well, how can you move that certain amount of mass from point A to point B, and how can everything be self-aware, and how can entanglement extend beyond atoms to complex beings? That's all a very valid point. But the thing is when you're looking at it, that's when you're looking at it from the micro, and you have to go through physics and explore all of these different things and reconcile them with what we know or believe to be the rules of the physical universe. But then when you go to the macro, where you're looking down on what the physical universe actually is, it's not even here. It is energy vibrating at certain frequencies to create the illusion of physical matter. It is purest source. It's just a big ocean of energy. And if it's a big ocean of energy, anything can be possible. It doesn't even have to obey the rules of physics. We have things in even quantum photosynthesis with plants, where we're learning that the plant is able to go outside of physical reality and process its photons in quantum space and then snap it back in. So it's like looking at the universe and going, well, is there aliens or isn't there? The fact of the matter is the universe is a program, and there can be anything you want. So it's not is there aliens or isn't there? It is anything possible within this reality? Absolutely. Then does that mean it's happening? Well, that's subjective to your experience and why you're here. So I think the answer is, it's not, can we move bodies faster than the speed of light? I think the answer is, why can't we?
Yes, and another thing, why can't we, is this ties into your work directly, the idea of getting this stuff on television. It's been said you're better off just ditching the TV because the only thing TV is good for is brainwashing. Well, that's not always true. Every so often there is a diamond in the rough show that comes along that has the ability to wake people up. I had Carmen Bolter on my program. She had the Pyramid Code documentary talking about how ancient Egypt is completely different from what we're led to believe. And there were a lot of things in that documentary that you would think the system of domination control that suppresses our consciousness doesn't want us to know about. And I talked with her about how she managed to get that on television. And when I had Bill Burns on, he explained what it was that got UFO hunters the boot, and why those new episodes that they said were going to air in 2010 but never aired, what the deal with that was. Now, you being a Mufon TV guy, I'm sure you're aware of people that have tried to get stuff on TV. Stephen Greer, for example, has talked about this guy at Fox who said, I can definitely get this stuff on TV. I assure you I can. I'm in charge of all this, so trust me, I'll be able to get it on. But then after he found out he wasn't able to get it on, he said, sorry, not for this stuff. I'm not going to be able to. And we can only assume or imagine what happened behind closed doors if there were death threats or something to that severe nature.
It's not anything that dramatic. I mean, this is a fact, okay? And it's not debatable. Every major mainstream media outlet, especially in the United States, has government minders on staff. Okay, these guys are paying attention to what they're doing. They're reporting to what they're doing. In a lot of ways, they're collaborating with some of the programs and agendas of the government. If you think what you're watching on A&E is because these guys just have free reign to go and do whatever they want, absolutely not. They are working hand in hand on some level with the people who are managing this information. And when I say managing the information, the same people that took it and made it secret and have kept it secret for this whole time since the modern history of the phenomenon. And there is always going to be a gatekeeper at that level, making sure what goes on and what doesn't. And that's just the way it is. And so ever since I got into my media career, I have sidestepped that entire machine. I created my own online TV channels. Nobody can tell me what I can put on and what I can't. Am I going to reach the giant audience that I could reach if I had a show on the Travel Channel? Actually, maybe. You can be on Roku now. We're developing that. We're developing the apps. We're going to be in a position very soon where we can distribute the media across all of the mediums people are used to consuming it on without any of the supervision. and we're going to see how that plays out.
Yes, and that goes double for journalists in the papers as well. Definitely want to try to encourage them
I
to
mean,
not be
Stephen
so.
Greer's not going to get on the Travel Channel maybe, but he's not having any problem being on YouTube. At the end of the day, you know, and it's interesting, if you look at the numbers, a typical cable show needs to generate a minimum of about 700,000 viewers to make it viable to produce, which, and then the average budget is between $20,000 and $60,000 for, you know, a home improvement show or a DIY show or a basic travel show. Um, but then if you get 700,000 views on YouTube, you might make $500. So the whole system is screwed up. But at the end of the day, Dr. Greer, and I know him because I don't know if you know this about me, but I've hosted the red carpet for all three of his movies. So at the live streams, when his movie premiered at a certain theater, I was the one on camera talking to him and interviewing him and bringing the whole ceremony to the world. And I just finished doing his last film, and him and I had a great talk on the live stream. But he's got millions of views. And so he is reaching people with his message. And is he not going to be able to get it on a network? Even if you take out the nefarious stuff, like there's secret government minders, these guys have a lot of people to answer to and a lot of fish to fry. They have to answer to their stockholders. They have to answer to their lawyers. It's harder and harder and harder for them to have free reign.
Right. I've tried to reach out to Dr. Greer a couple of times for my show, but it seems like the people don't really want to have him come on, and I've had the excuse that they're unfortunately giving me is your audience isn't big enough. Well, I raised the question here: how am I supposed to get a big audience if the people that I'm reaching out to aren't willing to come on the show because I don't have a big enough audience? It's kind of like if every single job application in the world asks you, do you have experience in this field? Because if you won't hire, I won't hire you if you don't have experience. Well, how can I get experience if nobody's going to hire me? You'll never be able to get a job that way. It's just shows you how screwed up the matrix is. But I mean, it's like they're expecting me to be in the right place at the right time or something to get all the a popular audience. And I have been shadow banned quite a few times, got a few videos kicked off the air, and I have said the dreaded CV word that nobody dares mention on YouTube a few times, and that unfortunately cost me a few things, and I haven't been able to monetize on this channel since Independence Day of last year when I applied, and they claim that the pandemic is the reason it's taking so long, but I think there's other reasons for that. As a stray radio host in distress that I am and have been for a while, can you maybe give a little bit of advice to me and all the other people out there who just really can't stand this? Well, I don't want to come on your show because you don't have a big audience, and how are we supposed to get publicity if nobody's giving us a chance?
Well, how do they know you don't have a big audience?
Well, my YouTube channel count, 6.3 thousand subscribers. I'm doing the show since November 2013. Actually, I was lucky getting about 1,000 extra subscribers. I had like 5,000, and then when Millie Weaver, that Infowars reporter, went to jail for that for bogus charges because she aired a documentary that exposed a lot of secrets, I actually converted that documentary in an audio only version and uploaded it to my channel, and I said, hey everybody, listen to this. Millie Weaver went to jail for this. Please spread this far and wide. I'm doing what I can to help her. And luckily for me, that got me about 1,000 other subscribers. But still, it's not. It seems like there's some sort of algorithm out there that's shutting down me and a lot of other channels as well. That's true for YouTube, and I do tell people, but by all means, stick with YouTube and Facebook and all these big things and ride that horse till it falls down dead, because that there are the big organizations. You're still going to get a lot of people. Don't kick yourself off there and go to all the other smaller things. Um, um, Entirely, you want to stick with the big ones until they give you the boot. I'm sure you agree with that, but as long as I am on YouTube and Facebook and all these things, is there any any advice or that you can give for me and all the others out there who are being shadow banned and don't have way to get their info out as easily?
Well, one tip I can give you, you're probably already doing this, but put your media in one place and funnel all of the eyeballs or ears to that one place. So in other words, and you may already be doing this. I haven't looked at what you're doing, but put if you're going to have your show on YouTube, okay, great, put it on YouTube. Don't post it on Facebook. Don't post it anywhere else. Post the links and advertising that sends people to YouTube. Because if you have 100 people listening to you on the Facebook post that you just made, and you have 100 people watching you on YouTube, you're not centralizing your audience. So that's one thing that I see all the time. People they make a video and they put it out everywhere. And then they wonder why they're not getting any traction. And it's because you're not funneling your audience to one location. And so that's the biggest thing. Use Facebook, use Twitter, use Instagram to send people to one location. And I grew Mufon's YouTube channel from about 40,000 subscribers when I started playing with it, and it's up to a little under 80 now. And I did their Facebook page. I'm not solely responsible for this, but I'm a major contributor. I got their Facebook page up to 115,000 followers, and those are not big numbers, but it's just and the other thing is you got to deliver consistently, and you just have to not stop. And that's kind of where it's at. It's really, really hard, especially online radio it's a tough place to be.
Yeah. Sorry, I put myself on mute when I didn't realize I was on mute. Yeah, it is a tough place to be. Can't argue with that. Thank you for your advice and words of wisdom there. I'll do my best
just put your videos on YouTube and start making Facebook posts that directly link to that. Maybe you're doing that already, but if you're uploading your show to Facebook where people can watch it without ever having to go out of Facebook, then every person that does there is a person that's not finding you on YouTube. And then, of course, start posting, please subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. And you do that across all of your stuff, your Instagram, everything else. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Here's why. Make little ads and post them every day. You'd have to, it's weird. It took me a long time to understand it, and I'm still not super good at it, but it's the way things are done now, like it or not. It goes against everything I learned coming up in marketing and sales and media production. When I first started when I first came to Sedona and I started making DVDs, I set up a studio and I made the Sedona series videos of metaphysical DVDs. I made a bunch of stuff, hundreds of different presentations. I went to the International New Age Trade Show with point of purchase displays, and I opened up about 150 stores all over the world that were selling my DVDs. And then I was manufacturing them right in my garage. So I was basically, I'd have a 50-cent DVD and I'm selling it wholesale for $10. That was fantastic right up until YouTube showed up, and within a year every piece of content I ever made was on YouTube. People had stolen it, put it up there for free, and my entire business was destroyed. And that's what has happened in this day and age to filmmakers. You cannot, making a living as a filmmaker now it's almost impossible. And YouTube started it, and now this mentality of the audiences that why should they pay for your content? I used to get in that debate all the time. It's like, well, are you going to get up in the morning and go do your job for free? No. Well, then why are you watching my video on a bootleg channel on your way to work? It's like people don't get it. It's a societal thing that somehow content creators owe the fruits of their work to people, and they shouldn't pay for it. And platforms like Patreon and everything else, they're effective at getting some money to people, but at the end of the day, it's still gone from being what used to be a field where you could be creative and be an artist and make some money, just like in music, to something that's just really, really hard. But even your Patreon, start beefing it up with some cool stuff. Get a couple cool T-shirt designs. Get some products. You got to give people reasons to support you. So I don't know what you got as far as that stuff. But anybody out there, if you're going to go the Patreon route, you got to give people stuff, and you could make money on that. So you pretty much have to not only develop your content, you have to develop this whole world around your content that in bigger media, they have entire departments to do it. And now guys like you and me, we got to do it all ourselves. And it's really hard, and not a lot of people succeed at it.
That's right. And that leads me to get into one of the hardest subjects to talk about. But I think it needs talking about whenever we talk about ETs and money. They seem unrelated, but maybe we should bring up the fact that Alex Collier, I love the guy, he has been saying for years, Earth is the only civilization in the Milky Way that he knows of that uses money. And how can you not hear Alex Collier say that and think, well, God damn it, it's time for us to join, get with the club and stop being slaves to a system that's designed to impoverish us. Problem, though, is that it's going to be quite a while before money is out of the equation. However, there seem to be some things that are going on here, and after I give my little spiel here, I'll give you the chance to see what you have to say about it, because I'm sure it's come up in conversation a few times on your program about how the word on the street was last in 2020 May and April, when we had the lockdowns, there were some asserting that the lockdown aspect of that, where people were kept in their homes, wasn't really done by the bad guys. It was actually done by the good factions, the white hats, because they were trying to take out as many of the criminal bankers that run our society as they possibly could. Criminal bankers that, if you believe also what David Icke says about reptilian aliens controlling the world, they answer to them and all that, and they're trying to take out the last of them as well. And they basically took everything out that's not serving humanity well. And right now, we are hopefully going to maybe get something somewhere where we can get out of money faster. And I shouldn't say his name because it's gonna cost me some uh, views on YouTube. But the guy who should be in the White House now, but is in the White House now, uh, former British politician Simon Park said the reason he's not in the White House now, the primary reason is because he was going to put America on the gold standard in his second term and make that whole Nasara Jasara RV global currency reset thing manifest for real. And that's the reason why he took down a portrait of Bill Clinton and replaced it with a portrait of William McKinley, who put America on the gold standard at the turn of the 20th century. In the White House, the bankers would have none of that. So they made sure that voter fraud happened, and he's not in the office right now. However, if we are to believe that when the lockdowns have happened, and maybe some of the reasons some countries are currently locked down more so than others is because those countries, there's still a hot spot where things need to be taken out. The White Hats need to take out certain things. Are we to believe that maybe, okay, we are going to eventually get to a point soon where we will get on a gold standard, and then we can get with all the other civilizations out there in the universe after maybe 10, 15, 20 years, where we can transition to no money at all?
Well, how does that look? You know, it's a utopian idea, but how does it actually look? You know, I've seen a lot of people laying out, you know, what you do when you eliminate money, but it's not the exchange of energy for value of your contribution to society is something that's probably rampant through the entire universe because there's not a better way. Um, Stuff has to come from somewhere. People have to make it. You don't have bread that you could buy at the store because nobody made it, and people need to be remunerated for that. And it's, you know, money it's been corrupted by greed, and you know, greedy capitalism has messed up a lot of stuff. But then if you look back at different governments and the way they've run in the past, when you look at communism destroyed by corruption, you look at all these other forms of government that supposedly are designed to create a more equal society, every one of them fails, and it fails for the same exact reason every time, because of corrupt people at the top, um, being greedy and taking more than they can and leaving little for everybody else. And that seems to be the way things work on planet Earth. Survival of the fittest, the big eat the small. It just seems to be baked into our reality. So there's no reason to think that it's not baked into the cultures of other worlds, at least some. And so, you know, it is what it is. And until we figure out a way to evolve past it, it's not a matter of getting rid of money. It's a matter of enumerating one's contribution in a fair and equitable manner. So I don't think money is just the exchange of energy. I do something for you, you remunerate it in some way. You could get rid of cash and turn it into a barter system, but it's still money. There has to be quid pro quo throughout societies, or else you're just gonna, if everything was free, A, who's gonna make it? And B, you're gonna have a bunch of people just sitting there waiting for it to be delivered. So it's a real quandary. And I guess one day we get to the point where we have robots that do everything for us, and we can just sit around in utopia and hang out on the lake in the sun, eating picnics. But we're not there yet.
Well, yeah, that raises the question: Are ET brethren up there who are watching over us and want to help us every so often if they feel the situation is dire and we need to do something to help us with? I want to point out though, Alex Collier, he aside from saying we're the only civilization in the Milky Way that uses money, he also did point out before the whole pandemic started that the overlords are gone, the Draco overlords and the Anunnaki overlords, they're out of our reality. So the dark hats don't really have the luxury of having their overlord masters come to their rescue when the white hats protect them. But of course, Alex Collier then said, "I see great things for humanity in the not too distant future. Hopefully, well, unfortunately, the pandemic did throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into that. But in addition to that, it makes you wonder." Can the human race be trusted to? Well, first of all, there are some ET factions out there who don't think humanity can handle the truth. Corey Good has made that very clear. He thinks that that releasing all this stuff all at once will literally cause people to have heart attacks and strokes. And also, can we trust humans to not be apathetic couch potatoes and sit on their fat butt and smoke pot and watch sports all day long if everything is provided for them with technology? I mean, you got to give a little to get a little, but what percent of humanity is actually going to do that? And the question is, I should ask, what percentage of humanity is going to be the apathetic couch potato variety that says I don't have to work anymore because everything's provided for me?
It just depends on whether or not they're driven or not. I think that the thing that makes people get off the couch and achieve something has nothing to do with money at first. It has to do with drive. And at the end of the day, it's very easy for you're going to find a huge amount of people that will do exactly that, and then they'll have drugs, and they can just sit there and be high for their entire life, and they can live and die, and nobody will ever know they were there, and they can contribute absolutely nothing. I think giant swaths of the population would accept that offer. They think it was pretty cool. That's the problem.
Yeah, that is a problem, and I do want to give humanity a nice kick in the pants by pointing out, from a law of attraction standpoint, give what you get. Got to give to get. You got to get to give. You reap what you sow. And I'm just sitting there and not doing anything, waiting for something to be provided for you, isn't going to work out very well. And there's some concern by the ETs that if we were to release all the technology that could, all the Nikola Tesla type technology that could provide free energy for everybody, it's not going to work out all that well. And I mean, it's also a big shock to the system, of course, the way things have been going for a long time. You can't just flip a switch overnight and expect it to work well. You have to acclimate a little bit, and well, hopefully that will be happening. And that eclipse that's going to be crossing America in April 8th, 2024, supposed to signal the end of the Roman Empire or the modern era that is America. I'm eyeing that, and I've made reference to that a lot on this show, and I will be until the time comes there. And I'll be in Carbondale, Illinois when that day comes, and because that's the crisscross point of that eclipse and the one that happened in August 2017. And until then, America's going to be going through a civil war / American Revolution of sorts to try to make things right. When they say China's going to take over the world, I don't really see that as China being another Roman Empire. I see that as more of a people realizing that the Eastern schools, mystery schools of thought that Western society has torn apart and demolished. Western society is no longer going to be able to tear apart and demolish that. People realize the Chinese Eastern philosophies were the way to go, and a lot of ET folks would agree with that. Ancient Aliens often showed a lot of stuff about how in the Eastern world, ETs did teach disciplines to people in the Far East, and hopefully
Well, I don't see the government of China embracing that stuff. You know, if they were, if the Chinese Communist Party, who's running all of this, was actually running a country based on evolved Eastern philosophy, that would be an amazing thing. But they're not. They're a ruthless, brutal regime, and you're not going to find a whole lot of enlightenment going on there with the way this government is running its country and the things they do to people. So although there's some fantastic Eastern philosophies and there's some fantastic religious philosophies that came out of that part of the world, I don't see them being integrated. You're not taught those philosophies as a child in China. You're basically, I don't think they're not getting it.
It's a shame that that's the case. Well, hopefully the Chinese Communist Party will be taken out, and whoever's controlling. There's a lot of factions involved, and who controls which faction is all holy can of worms that a lot of people can't get into. It's a lot. I'm sure it's a lot more complex than reptiles rule the world, as David Icke says, and but there's factions within those reptiles, I'm sure too, and there's always on a quest for more truth, and people like you and I are going to talk about these things to try to get that out. So without further ado, I think it's best to end the show now. We've almost reached the hour mark, so why don't you take this moment to get out anything you'd like to get out, give me your contact info and everything, and I will close this out and upload it to YouTube tonight, and 2 to 3 weeks from now it will be public to everybody.
Well, that's awesome. I'd just like to say that, we've worked really hard to make MUFON Television a source for credible information about the ET topic, and MUFON is evolving into the group that will create the community for people that are looking for fellowship and answers as we really begin to embrace the fact that we're not alone in the universe. People are going to need a place to go. They're going to need people to talk to about it. They're going to need people to hang out. And that's where MUFON is growing up and positioning itself. So, it's going to be a very interesting few years from a lot of standpoints. And we're just doing our part to contribute to good, solid knowledge and a good place to coalesce. And then as far as all the other stuff you're talking about, man, there's so many different viewpoints. And this pandemic has really revealed things about people and separation and parity that has just been really hard to digest. And it's also shown how easily society can be manipulated by a few. And it's, I hope that we learn the lessons from it before we become ultimately victimized by it.
Well said. So thank you very much for coming on. It was a pleasure having you on. Awesome.
Thank you, Andrew.
And best of luck on your future endeavors, and good luck on getting the truth out there. Take care.
Hey, and just remember, man, you build your stuff one subscriber at a time.
Exactly.
Reply to the comments. Drive people to a central place, and give them something.
I will. Take care now.
All right. Thanks.